right. Well, greetings, everybody. Welcome once again to the RecPoker podcast. Sponsored, as always, by Running Aces Racetrack, Casino, and Hotel, and website AMP. We got our Chats edition tonight, and this is actually one of my favorite episodes where we just chat about the seminar. And the reason it's one of my favorites is because I love the guests. I love digging in. I love asking them all kinds of questions. But I feel like we don't get a chance as a group to talk as much. And so this is more of an opportunity to kind of hang out with the group, hang out with the posse, and kind of hear what's happening. So I'm excited about that. Before we do that, let's introduce the panel. My name is Steve Fredland. I go by RecPoker Steve in the Poker Stars home game. And I got another Albert Einstein quote for you. And it really presses in nicely to the seminars. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember. Involve me and I learn.
And I'm Chris Jones. I'm 5x5 on Poker Stars and Twitter. And someday I'm going to convince the whole world that there is, in fact, the best hand in poker.
Well, my name's Jim Reed, Bluffstreeny in the home game at Hold'em_Steelers on Twitter. And I'm here to say that all work and no poker makes Jim a dull boy. We've got to find more time to play poker so far.
And I'm John Somsky, Poker Geek MN everywhere. And I have a quote from the late, great Chip Reese. I had to make a choice between being a lawyer or a professional gambler. I chose the more honorable of the two.
And I'm Rob Watcham, and I'm Radman50 everywhere. And I don't think Chris is ever going to convince me that there's a best hand in poker.
Love it. And I'm not sure Jim can ever convince me that that's the reason he's dull, is that he I'm not sure about that either. But all right, before we jump into the seminar, guys, a couple quick things. I know this is being broadcast right after our Reckies Award show. So I want to break it down. I want to talk about the winners. I want to talk about all that stuff. But unfortunately, there's only two of us here that know who won stuff. And so we got to keep this a surprise for all you guys. And trust me when I'm saying this, that it was really fun. It was really fun, you guys. I'll maybe eat those words, but I don't think so. But the other thing I want to announce is that this is being released on, I believe, the 2nd of the Tuesday. And tomorrow, then, if you're listening to this the same day, is when we actually start our free Jatin training course. So February 3rd, Wednesdays and Fridays, you can still jump in there. 5 weeks of 2 sessions a week, 2 hours a time. And if you haven't heard, joining Fareed for at least 3 of the sessions will be 2014 World Series of Poker main event champion Martin Jacobson, who won a cool $10 million in that tournament. So it should be fun. Fareed is fantastic, a top 5 GPI player. Obviously, we get a chance to kind of see his style, interact with him. He's very engaging. But now you layer on Martin Jacobson, you layer on a bunch of the folks like us who have signed up, who are just going to have a good time learning the game. It should be a real fun time. So if you have any questions about how to sign up, go to rec.poker/Fareed, Farid, or just reach out to me, Steve at rec.poker. So with that, guys, how we doing?
Well, I'm excited. One thing I got to add to that is that we're also doing the RecPoker Learning Together package. So for a fraction of the course of for the fraction of the price of the Fareed course, you can actually either add on this study package, or you can just do the study package on its own, where various members of the panel, along with Steve or I, or however it works out, we're going to be hosting like a study hour after each of these sessions where we all get to kind of unpack it a little bit and chat amongst ourselves. Everyone will be up on the screen in the panel like this. And then we're also going to do a weekly study group a few days away from the material so that we've had some time to absorb it and we can have another chance to get back into that. So that's going to be really great. So it's basically, it's a 20-hour course from Fareed, and then we're adding 15 hours of extra study material to it. So if you're interested in that, the link is in the same place as the course. So go check that out. It's going to be
awesome. Chris Jones doesn't have enough to do, so we got to try to
pile it on
a little bit more for that. Well, guys, I think we'll do the community stuff later, talk about the home games, all that stuff. But the real focus today is the seminar, the seminar that we ran for January, Tells and Reads. And so I think the idea here is to give you guys a flavor for what happens in these seminars. I know we've got all the thousands of people that listen to the podcast, but not all of you are members at Rec.Poker. So we want to give you a little flavor. Don't want you to miss out. We want you to get a little bit of the information that came through the seminar, but also tease it out a little bit, kind of let you know what's going on inside the site. So I don't know if Chris, if you're the one to lead us there and kind of
sure. Yeah. It was, this was actually, so like disclaimer, this was the seminar, we've now done a full year of these, which is great. We've got 12 under our belts. We've had some really great topics. This was the seminar I think I was the most kind of nervous about, because I was like, it's kind of a murky topic. It's kind of, I'm not sure if this is going to translate as well, but it was a really great conversation. So first of all, we had Zach Elwood join us, and he led us through thinking about some things, and we'll probably talk about some of those things and kind of reviewing it. And then we took what we learned from that, and then what I did was I went and found two tournaments that we could watch. And if you've never done this kind of thing before, it was really illustrative. We went and we first watched, in the first part, we watched a charity tournament where people were drinking. It was loosey-goosey. There were probably people there who don't play poker very often, and really looked at sort of their behaviors and the choices they were making at the table and how they held themselves, and how, when they had a strong hand, what kind of things they sort of like did. And then the next part, we went and we looked at an $1,100 MSPT Final Table, 7 of which at that table were what I would call, like the elite Midwest killers. It was just a decked table. And so we looked at those two in comparison, and like just watching people, we commented during it, like, this doesn't seem even like the same game really that people are playing, but watching the way people react to it. And you could even, in the $1,100 one, start to see some, maybe I think that person might be doing a few things there that there might be conveying a little bit of information. So it was a really good conversation.
Yeah, I think in the first tournament, probably over half of the people had a favorite hand, whereas in the second tournament, I think they all were smart enough not to.
Were they all pocket five?
I think in the first tournament, everyone had their favorite hand was any two cards.
Yeah.
That was the way. Like, I was really struck at just the approach that was. I think the people in the charity tournament were just. They had different goals for their time there. Like, that was the most clear part of it. They weren't trying to just, some of them even might have been trying to disguise their tells, but they weren't thinking about like what tells are important, or, what other people were actually paying attention to. And there was on the pro side, there was a real discipline, a sort of a mindset change. You could just tell that they were serious about it. And it didn't look like as fun a table, to be honest with you, right? They weren't having as much fun. There's definitely a trade-off there.
It's weird. In $1,100 tournaments, they don't splash pot the table with 12 packs of beer. That's just weird. It's weird. Like, you never see that happen.
Really? So how long? So talk about. So how much of the coverage did you guys actually watch and go through, and then is that all available as part of the video archive as well, or was some of that cut out, or?
Yeah, we watched. In the first part with Zach, we talked a lot about some of the conventional wisdoms that go about tells, like strong means weak and weak means strong. But we really teased that out a little. I think we talked with him a lot about how that's, something to sort of maybe keep in your mind, but it's not necessarily like this hard and fast rule. In fact, one of the things that we talked about was there's some degree of like intentionality in there, or like, what are people's intentions? Like, if it's unintentionally strong, then it might just be strong, right? But if if they're looking intentionally strong, if they're looking like staring you down or doing that might be a little bit of weakness or something. So there's like this sort of different gradations of like not just reading every action as somebody who, they look really strong, so they must be weak. So anyway, we broke that down, and that was about, I would say, a 45-minute conversation. And then we took probably around 45, 50 minutes with each of the tables and really looked at them. They went through several orbits where we watched some sort of play develop, and it was a really. I mean, I learned a lot. Just listening to Zach, and then. I kind of went in thinking we're going to learn the most from this charity tournament. What we're going to learn from the MSPT is that you can't read players like this. But I think there were some spots where there was some information being conveyed.
So yeah. I'm so intrigued. I mean, how much of that, sometimes, you see the cards and then you're like, then you watch the behavior and you're going, oh, yep, see, they're doing that. Do you feel like, though, even if you hadn't seen the cards, you'd feel the same way, like you're picking up on things?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's one of the things that Zach talks about is that what you're looking for primarily are sort of divergences from standard behaviors. Okay, so sometimes they slide their chips in, very gently, and then this time they're slamming it down on the table. And what is really helpful in that is if you can get some confirmation. Okay, when they slam it down on the table, they're really weak, right? So it's very helpful when you're watching a table and you can get that confirmation on every hand, right?
True,
so that now you can start to so I'm not sure that some of the things we were seeing there that I would necessarily have picked up live at the table, but because I could see every hole card, you can start to pick some things up, and I can see why, you hear about the sort of the really elite players doing video scouting when, Fedor is on a TV table, then, Bonomo's watching it and sort of taking notes about him. And I can see why and how that happens, because you start to get more of that confirmation as you're looking at it.
I think there's a little bit too with when you're not in the moment. So you're not at the table, there's no pressure on you, and we're just watching the tables. Even if we couldn't see the hole cards, I think it's a little bit easier in that situation. I know there are times when I am not part of a hand, everyone's actions and holdings and the whole hand just is much more clear than when I'm involved with it, because there's none of my emotion, there's none of my thought process. I'm just kind of taking it more in. So I think there was a little bit of that as well.
And actually, now that I'm remembering this too, the other thing that I think that every player out there, I think that we can all take away, we can all take the number one tell that people give even at the highest level. Well, maybe not at the highest level, but even at a really high level, people give away when they're going to fold, when they don't care about their hand. And if they're to your left and you can figure that out, and all it takes is glancing to your left a little ways, some of these players who are elite, Midwest area, MSPT, circuit grinders, won multiple MSPT, those kinds of players, they're given away when they're folding before they do it. And
you're talking about pre-flop, pretty much.
Pre-flop, yeah.
Which, feel free to bring out names. That's great.
Watch
the video.
That's really valuable to you if you're in the cutoff.
Oh, yeah.
You can see that the button is gonna fold. You're the button now, and that's a huge thing.
And that's what I was going to ask you too, because I feel like human nature would be to overstate the value of that. Say you have one person to your left that is clearly going to fold. I think there might be an overreaction by a lot of recreational players, be like, oh, okay, well now this is a good opportunity to go crazy. But really, what you're talking about is it sort of just should move your position one spot basically, or two spots if you think two people are going to fold, right? So you should probably use your ranges as if, like you said, as if you're in the button now instead of the cutoff, but not be like, oh man, now it's a huge opportunity, I'm going to rip 7 deuce in there or something, right? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Right.
I mean,
well, and you can also use it for the blinds as well. If you get any indication that they're going to fold, then that's one less player you have to go get by. So it really is just like you can play a lot more hands on the button than you can from under the gun. If you know everyone's going to fold, then you've got the virtual button.
I love that.
Yeah, and of course it works both ways too, because if you look left and you see that player is actually pretty interested in the hand, then they're probably not going to fold, and maybe you should be condensing your opening range a little bit there as well. Definitely, the later in position you are, the more important it is, including the blinds. But I think it's really valuable. And I was surprised at how many of these higher level players were really telegraphing their intention to fold.
Well, I think part of the reason is it doesn't hurt them for that particular hand, right? I think it still could, in that if there's the players who are going to notice that tend to be the better players, and you really don't want to give the better players any more excuse to pick up any more chips than they are already going to get. Yeah. So I kind of look at it like an ethical thing. You're not supposed to telegraph your hand to other people. And doing that, I mean, everyone does it. I've done it too. You just do it by accident. It's human nature. But in general, you should try not to.
And you said, I mean, it doesn't hurt them that hand, maybe because they're going to fold anyway. But 2 hands later or whatever, when they show interest in the hand, that could keep me, like Jim said, that could keep me from opening. So it does hurt them because they could have 3-bet my open or whatever. And so it does kind of hurt them that way, but maybe they probably never realize it. That's interesting. Yeah. I'm curious, Chris, did you have something else on that?
And the other thing that we talked about with Zach, which is something I think that I make no, I'm not a tells expert. It's not something that I'm trying to try to understand it a little better. It's not something I've typically been really on the lookout that much for. I really try to play more like the cards and the math and the flop texture and that kind of thing versus like the staring into somebody's soul or whatever. But the thing that I think he really pointed out to us and talked through is that so much of we see in poker, and actually I wrote something about this for us as well. Like so much of what we see in sort of popular culture and in even poker on TV is somebody just staring into somebody's eyes, like looking for them to crack or to break or to whatever. And really what we're looking for are these differences in behaviors, divergences from it might be hand movements. It might be, leg twitches. It might be, breathing kind of things. It's not necessarily you're just going to look at somebody's eye and they're going to start sweating and oh God, you got me. Yeah, right. That's really not what we're looking for. And I think if people could stop doing that, we all save ourselves a lot of time at the table. And instead, maybe what we should be looking for are a lot of these other more subtle kind of things and behaviors.
Yeah, I was struck at how, I love talking to Zach about this stuff. He is just so versed in this material. What a get, Chris, to get him on for the seminar. He's amazing. So even if all you want to do is just watch the first hour of us talking with Zach, that would be extremely valuable. But I think one of the things that he kept saying was that different people are going to have different responses to strong hands and to weak hands. So even if you are doing this death stare and the guy cracks, what did he crack to display the value of his hand or the weakness of his hand? What was the cracking that occurred? You really do need to have a baseline that you can compare it to. And further to that point, Chris, the mechanics of the way people hold their cards and their chips, the way that they bet with the chips, the way that they hold their chips while they're considering betting, that was really interesting. I found that even the players that they play mom poker, they just sit there quiet and don't make a move. I thought you could tell there was one guy who protected his cards differently according to what kind of hand. We thought maybe, if he has a pair, he puts them like this. If he has 2 high cards, he puts them like this. Stuff like that was really, really interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you guys have the mental capacity for that? So, we've talked about this before. This is my own shortcoming, and I just wonder if other people have the same thing. I could even, first of all, it's mental energy to be watching all that, which I think is valuable. And then you have to notice it and tuck it away, and then you have to be able to remember it. And so what I found is okay, I might notice somebody ooh, they did that. And then 30 minutes later, I'm okay, I knew they did that, but I don't remember what they actually had. I can't retain it all. And then maybe you guys have that capacity, but I've sort of given up on that part because I just know even if I'm observing and spending all the energy, I don't really have the wherewithal to bring it back out later.
I think what you really want to boil it down to is it's not necessarily that strong means weak and weak means strong, but that if we can start to identify that when they're breathing heavily, they're doing that with some kind of bluff, or when they're breathing heavily, they're doing that because they're strong. Like, that's the kind of confirmation that you want to find. And then you can start to maybe go into some shorthand, like seat 7, when weak, breathes a lot or something like that, that's all you really need to know about them. And then again, what Zach was talking about too, is that this doesn't then become just like wildfire. You're just like, looking for this player and, taking advantage of them the whole time. It's the decision maker when you're in a really tough grinder spot, and it's like, what am I doing? I don't know what. And
you kind of use tells as the tiebreaker,
right?
Yes,
right.
tiebreaker.
When you have a couple of choices and it could go either way, that's what you basically use it for.
Yeah.
And I think it's like anything. Go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say, I think you just pay attention, and then when you get into those situations, you just have that feeling. You're not identifying one specific thing, but you just have that general feeling that he's either weak or strong because of all the observations you've made. You're not saying, oh yeah, he lifted his left pinky, that means something. It's not specific like that. It's just a general feeling that you're going to get because you've been observing him the whole time.
I mean, if you think about it, humans have had to learn how to read each other. Now, previously, so that we wouldn't go off and kill each other when we met a stranger, right? So we're very attuned to reading facial expressions and everything from other people. So you can often, exactly as Rob said, you'll get a feeling for, I don't know why, but I don't think they're strong. And that's the kind of tell reading I do a lot of at the table when I'm playing live. It's just, I can't always put a finger on it, and I'm not always right. But it seems like I'm right more often than I'm wrong, or it helps enough to make a difference.
Against
and I
me.
think,
yeah.
I think it's because I think, Steve, you make a really good point that your mental bandwidth at the table is a resource that's not infinite either, and so you have to be kind of guarded with what you're spending your active brain time on, and it's not going to be a good use of your time to be holding in your mind every tell of every player at every point in the game. I think there is an element of, like Chris said earlier, the most important thing is just finding a confirmation for it in the moment. And then I think kind of like what John's saying is just let your natural body, your natural mind incorporate that into your decision making in the time. Because you're not really going to be able to like pull up your chart and say, oh, in this player does this in this spot. And I think that's probably the people that are better at reading tells are, it's part experience, it's part intentionally tying the results to the displays that they can see and remember, and like taking the time to go back through the hand now and say, oh, okay, now that I've seen their cards, what was the decision point on this street that caused them that distress, and then just kind of naturally taking it from there. Because there's the one thing that we are pretty good at, relatively, is telling when someone's comfortable or when they're not comfortable. And Zach kept coming back to that as this, like, what you're really trying to find out is this player comfortable or not? And if they're not, there's a couple reasons why they could be uncomfortable. And if they are, there's a couple reasons they could be comfortable, but mostly they're comfortable because they have a good hand or because they feel like they're going to win the hand, which isn't always the same thing, right? Maybe they just made a really good bluff and they're very confident you're going to fold. They could also be comfortable. But that was one thing that, figuring out like what do people look like when they're comfortable, what do people look like when they're not comfortable, and then kind of like using that in the moment to make strategic decisions.
And what do they say too? Because we also talked with Zach about verbal and nonverbal sort of instances. So we talked a lot about like statements of relative hand strength, which can be big kind of giveaways. So that there are some sort of classic verbal tells which we talked about, which were also really good.
Yeah, one we can give away here on the podcast, I think, is when players elect to remove strong hands from their range. That tends to be a signal of strength. So if someone says, "Oh well, I don't have the full house," typically that means they've got the set, or something else that's quads. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah, right.
And very, very naturally, you can see why, because it encourages the other person to think maybe they don't have the strongest hand, and that's just not an action that most people take when they're bluffing. Because when they're bluffing, they want to have as much fold equity as possible. So they just don't. Now, but you could see how someone playing with Zach on a different level might, now start introducing those false tells, which we also talked a little bit about. Yeah. And we had a good conversation about that too. And we did come across a few spots where especially recreational players can use false tells against more knowledgeable players who think that they're operating at a higher level. So I picked up some notes. I don't know if Zach's a listener, but I did pick up some notes in case I ever sit across the table from him. I'm looking forward to trying some stuff. My favorite false
tell, maybe it's not a tell, my favorite one is when I flop the flush. And I'm facing action, I always look back to see if I have a diamond. I got them both, Let's see if I got it. Well, I'll call. Let's see this. Let's see one. So I don't know, Christy, others of you want to talk about probably, but I'm kind of curious, like, what you guys learned about your own game a little bit, or maybe what would change in your game as a result of hearing, as a result of watching other people and hearing what Zach had to say, and then thinking about your own game and how do you prevent tells or introduce false tells. So what did you learn that maybe you'll try to implement in your game?
I mean, I think the biggest thing to be when you're playing with really elite level players is to try to make your behaviors consistent, particularly the timing in which you make decisions. I think for online, it's the only tell you can find, and in person, it's one of the sort of like the most classic tells is, quick decisions versus long decisions versus sort of medium decisions. If you've got an immediate decision, exactly, this is an easy spot. I always call here, you've got top pair, no kicker. I'm always calling this. I'm never raising. I'm never folding. Those kinds of spots, don't make them that quickly. Give your count. Count to 7 in your head or something. Don't stall forever. But because if you do, those are the kind of things I think that I am going to be trying to look for sure.
Yeah, and Andrew Brokus on the Thinking Poker podcast talks about how when you're hand ranging, you're not trying to put someone on one hand and, you're trying to put them on a range of hands. But even more than that, if you can put them in one of these 3 buckets, then you're going to be easier off. Either they have a monster, they have a marginal hand, or they have a draw or error. If you start thinking about hand ranging opponents in those 3 ways, then when they do have an easy decision, as Chris says here, it's not enough to tell you what hand they have, but you can almost tell what kind of hand they don't have. And if you can eliminate one of those 3 buckets, if you can say, oh, okay, well, they either have a marginal holding or a monster, you don't make the play on them that's going to try and get them to fold their error or their draw, right? If you know that they either have a monster or error or a draw, then, you can do something with a very small size that you wouldn't necessarily want to do otherwise. So it's not all about saying what hands they do have as much as saying, being able to make their range more predictable, eliminating sections of hands. That's really helpful too.
John, Rob, did you guys pick up anything about your game?
Oh, my game's pretty much perfect. So
he's got it solved.
Well, I wasn't going to, before I asked that question, I was going to ask you, how do you do it? But no, finish it.
Actually, the main way I do it is just I have no actual movement. I make sure that my mouth doesn't even move when I talk.
There he goes. There he's got the picture.
That's ventriloquist John.
Yeah.
That's VJ.
No, I mean, I think there's a lot to be gotten there, and I need to start trying to look at some of the things and tie them together a little more. And going back to the level of effort or mental energy statement from before, I think it's like anything. If you ask a 3rd grader what's 3 times 4, they have to expend quite a bit of mental energy to figure that out.
I feel attacked.
Right. But if I ask either one of you, you don't even have to hardly think of it, right? So I think it's the same type of thing where I can't.
Even now they're interrupting John.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even the home game section. Let the man talk.
Anyway, I think as you get more comfortable with it, it takes less and less mental energy. This may still not be the spot to start because, again, this goes back to the tiebreaker situation. But if you don't know what your options should be or what you're even considering, then a tell isn't necessarily going to help.
Oh, that's good. Now, Rob, were you part of that conversation? I'm curious if you're connected. I know you're having some connection issues. If you were, did you pick up anything that you're going to try to apply to your game at all?
Yeah, I think we talked about the speed in which you're performing your actions. And when I know what I'm going to do, I'm really quick at it. But at the same time, that gives off an indication that I didn't have anything to think about.
Mm-hmm.
So like Jim was talking about those 3 types of hands, well, they can take one of those hands out of my range if I'm doing that, even though I might have one of those hands and I'm waiting for another action and I know exactly what my response is going to be based on their action.
Mm-hmm.
I still need to step back because I play way too fast.
Mm.
And I play mostly online, and that's a problem for me too, honestly. And I think I do use timing tells when I'm playing against regular players online. And I think it's a bad habit of mine to kind of already make up my mind what I'm going to do when the action comes around to me, and then just, I'm not one of those pre-clickers. I don't like to do that. I don't like to pre-select to fold or check or whatever. But I do, generally have the bet size lined up. I know what I want to do, and I just go and do it. But more than once, I won't say how many times, but more than once, I've said to myself, why didn't I just take 5 seconds? Why didn't I just take 5 seconds and use 5 seconds of time bank? And maybe I'll catch something about sizing, or maybe there's someone else sitting down at the table, or even online. I do think it's valuable, and just nothing wrong with taking 5. I don't think anyone's going to complain if you take 5 seconds on a pre-flop decision. I don't think anyone wants everyone taking 30 seconds to stall so that you're unexploitable, and even the tough decisions and the easy decisions. But take 5 seconds, and I think that's a good one.
So I know we're going to kind of wrap up the part of the discussion here, but there's been some really good chat. So if you're a member, join the chat because you're missing out on some of that stuff there. But I'll just raise the question for you guys, wondering if this was brought up in the seminar, the use of a card protector at all. Was that a discussion?
It didn't come up. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we didn't really talk about it specifically. I know there's been a lot of conversation in the poker world. I think it's Jonathan Little, right? Who's really against them.
Yes.
And, I think like any of these other things, like if you've got your whatever, I don't know what it is. I don't have one, but if you've got your little
lucky Blarney Stone
victory Python or your Blarney Stone or whatever, and you want to bring that to the table, I say go for it, but you really want to be cognizant of that you're just doing with what you're doing with that it's always the same.
Yes.
Because it's one more thing to keep track of.
So it's one more thing that you potentially could be inconsistent with. Rob?
If you're using a card protector, you should always wait to look at your hand until it's your turn. Because whether you put the card protector on or not is going to be a big tell as to whether you're going to play the hand or not, if you've already looked at your cards.
And see, I'm the other way. See, I like to look at my hand right away.
If you're going to use a card protector.
Sorry, Rob. Yeah, I like to look at my hand right away, but but I do try to do that and then put the chip on right away. So either way, it's hopefully consistent. But yeah, I think there's an opportunity.
Right. But if you're gonna fold, you put the chip on.
Yes. Yeah, I look and then I just put the chip on and then wait and then try to
see. I put the chip on before I look at my cards, so it's on my cards. I'm holding the chip instead of holding the cards down when I flip up the corners. So then when I let go, it's already protected, and it's impossible for me to give a tell because I'm doing that whether I'm planning on folding or calling.
Yeah, a lot of the live play that I've enjoyed has been cash, and so for me, I do have a little Steelers decal that some friends got for me several years ago that I used. But also, I've also just used the amount of chips that I plan to tip the dealer when I win the hand. And what's nice about that is that you should always protect your hand. So whether you're using a card protector or a chip or just keeping your action tight, it's your obligation to protect your hand from getting accidentally mucked or screwed up by someone else throwing the cards across the table. That's on you. So I always like to, I don't give up my cards until the pot's been shoved towards me, and then I slide them over towards the dealer and the tip's already there taken care of. So that's a nice feature as well if you're playing cash games.
Well, good, guys. I know there's a lot more we could talk about, but that hopefully gives a tease and good stuff. Anything else kind of burning from the seminar that we need to make sure people are aware of?
I guess one thing, Zach's just a fount of wisdom. He just gives out so many great stuff. And I guess, watch the seminar for some of the details, but just a couple things like pay attention to big bets. Like that's where a lot of these tells are going to come up. And, it's not something you're going to see on every street, on every action, but pay attention to big bets. And then if you want anything else, you're going to have to go see the seminar.
That means I got to watch Rob on every single hand. All right. Well, good stuff, guys.
As you should.
Sort of a
Yeah.
What was that? I missed that.
As you should.
Come on, Rob. I've learned so much from you having discussions about bet sizing. Seriously, it's been so much fun over the years talking bet sizing with you. Well, let's wrap up the conversation there. Unless there's anything else burning that we need to talk about. Good discussion, good chatter in the chat. Make sure you're all checking that out as well. But let's. Do you want to do the dice, Jim, and then we'll get into the commercial, and then we'll wrap up with the whole game and everything else going on.
That sounds good.
I think there's only 5 or 6. So you don't. Have to
6. So we're gonna. No, not too nerdy. Just normal die. Here we go. Let's see what we got. 1 through 6. Roll in 6.
Oh,
Martha! Back-to-back weeks for Martha.
Back.
So Martha gets $50 off the free chat and chorus. Martha, you can email me, Jim@rec.poker, and we'll get that all taken care of.
All right, very good. Well, let's roll into let's hear from Jonathan Little right now.
Yep, that's
I don't know how many times I'm going to be pointing.
We'll do that right now. Here we go.
He's writing down the winner because he might not remember.
Or 3-bet instead? What do you do when you have a flush draw? Do you raise it or do you just call? What do you do with ace-king when you miss the flop? Are you tired of guessing about what the right play is with your particular hand? Well, my name is Jonathan Little, and I am a 2-time World Poker Tour champion and creator of PokerCoaching.com, where we offer over 1,000 interactive hand quizzes where you play a hand and then get real-time feedback from our world-class pros. Don't guess and don't stress. Just register for your free account at PokerCoaching.com/RecPoker right now.
Don't stress, don't guess. That was probably unfair to you. You were looking down. I'm trying to point.
It worked out great.
I just want to blame and throw you under the bus a little bit there. Well, let's transition to the man, the myth, the legend, the whole package. Mr. Somsky, what do you got for us?
Well, we have lots of tournament results. So John Lutzy on January 18th got his first daily victory of the year. MN White Tiger, who we do not yet have a name for, got their first.
I know who it is, but
year.
So, John, I'm sorry. I know I'm interrupting you, but let's.
Hey, I got through the first one without interruption.
Well,
That's almost like a record. I got through one and on to the second.
This is interrupting with a reason. So I know who that is. I won't reveal them because maybe they want to keep it private. But let's say somebody's out there and we say, oh, we don't have, you haven't made your name public, but they want to be mentioned on air. What should they do if MN White Tiger says, man, I actually want my name announced? What should they do?
So we honor whatever your privacy settings are on your profile. So if you want your name to be mentioned, you have to make your name public and your PokerStars username public. If both are not public, then we just treat you as private and it won't go anywhere. It made it a little worse in that the default used to be that for new members, they were listed as private to begin with. I've changed the defaults in the system, so now new members coming in, they start off as public, and if you want to make them private, you can. But that's what you need to do is you just go to your profile, go to your settings, make sure that your first name and last name, or if you only want first name, that's fine. But make sure your name is public and make sure your PokerStars username is public.
Okay. And conversely, if you don't want your name announced, make sure they're private. So thanks, John. I think that's an important piece. We made everybody get an account so that we know who your username are. We can tie that in. But now with your actual real name, it's up to you if you want that shared or not. So thank you, John. Sorry. So MN White Tiger.
All right. Then we have Now Then KB. Doug Barron's got his second victory for the year.
Hold on, Doug.
Easy Breezy. 1111. That's Raul Bitang. So Raul and his wife were sharing an account that was ZGRT, something like that. Anyway, now they were having, marital disputes because deciding which one of them wanted to play that given night. So, and RecPoker does not want to get in the way of a marriage like that. So we really suggested that they each get their own account. They're free. Now they can both play. And that is one thing to note, that in the home games for PokerStars, there isn't a restriction from people's playing with the same IP address. So it's kind of your honor system. We're trusting you not to share information you shouldn't be sharing, but because we want friends to be able to play to each other, occasionally they're going to be on the same IP, and you can do that with home games.
Yep, absolutely. And I think it was very nice that Raul gave Shona the other address so that she has all the records of all the wins that they've accumulated collectively.
Yes.
So Raul's got it's his first win. So,
well, if I had to guess, that's the way it should be. I mean,
probably the way it was too, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. Next, we have Gopher Boy TJM Taylor Moss.
Who?
He really lucked out because he won the bulk of his chips with one of the worst hands in poker, 5-5.
Oh man!
So, I heard the rumor is that he tripled up.
Yeah.
With a set of fives. So let it be known that even the great Taylor Moss, who makes fun of this hand all the time, wins most of his tournaments when he plays the hand correctly.
And was that the night that you and I were texting Chris when it happened?
I don't know, but yeah, I heard through the grapevine that
because I told him I was going to tell you that.
Well, I must have never played that hand correctly because I don't believe I have ever tripled up.
That's what you're doing wrong, John. I'd advise tripling up more often when you have pocket fives. Pro move. That one's free.
Nice job.
Now, I just never get interrupted when we do these things. Stewie13, whose name is also private, got his second daily victory of the year.
I got a good feeling his name's Stewie, though.
Yeah. Eric Molina, Rob Brereton, got his first daily mixed tournament of the year. And it's been a while. I mean, Rob was really making a splash last year, but I think towards the end of the year, he stopped playing as frequently. So it's nice to have him back, and he's a strong competitor.
Yeah, he beat me heads up. I was not very happy. I didn't want him back.
Then we have East Coast Spitter, Ben.
Hey, Ben.
Got his second international game of the daily series for the year. And RecPoker Steve Fredlin, got his first international victory for the year.
Done.
And last but not least, Graphic 16 Roger Shute got his first victory for the year.
And Roger Shute sort of is one of those names that live. He'll forever be linked to the RecPoker home games. He is our first ever silver pin winner from Maine. So Roger's kind of always there. He's got a piece of my heart just because he's got the first silver pin.
Every time John says his name, I want to say, Roger got the first silver pin at RecPoker. It's like it's stuck in my mind every single time. Yeah. It's amazing. Good for you, Roger.
Yeah, I do that. I think that same thing to my brain, and then I under my breath say, why haven't I won yet?
Where's my silver pin?
Yeah, exactly.
Same way.
You need to run a few more of those asterisk tournaments, John. They've been very popular with the podcast.
You win all the asterisk ones, Jim. Well, John, I'll give you some feedback too from people that I've gotten too. They love the Saturday practice ones. I know it's another work to set up with the mixed game, me included. But I know playing those games once a year that we never ever play for some of us is rough. So now to have that Saturday night practice one leading up to it, That I could tell when I did the 5-card draw. I didn't win it or anything, but I could tell that, boy, just having played that a couple times at least helped me. And same thing with the deuce to 7. So thanks for setting those up. And I think if you're trying to get into mixed games, which I've been reluctant to do, but now I'm like, hey, it's pretty fun, That's a great way to practice for that second Wednesday series.
If you go to a card room and you find a mixed game being played, that's usually the table where the people will be having the most fun.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. And that's what I'm looking for too. I'm looking for any table of playing cards anywhere where I feel safe. But secondarily, I would like to have fun. Yeah, I mean, I see that I know people playing Omaha and stuff. Maybe that's because they're all playing $3,000 pots. But
I was going to say they're splashing around a lot more money in those mixed games too.
Yeah.
Bring your money bags for those games.
I'd be laughing too if I could play $3,000 pots if I could just do it,
Well, yeah, I mean, for a while in Bobby's room, the mixed games there, they were playing 1,000, 2,000 limit.
Come on.
So I mean, a big blind.
Right.
Was $2,000.
Come on.
I mean, now I think they're smaller than that, but they're still playing like 100, 200 or something.
It's like one orbit is a car for me. Like when I spent on a car, like $3,000.
Yeah.
Holy Christ.
Oh man, I'm just thinking about my car. I think I'd get change back after that orbit. Yeah. Ben in the chat says, "Can you imagine the straddle?"
Yeah,
oh
right.
my God.
I just saw that comment. The straddle.
Well, and for a lot of them, they cap the no limiter. So if they have no limit or pot limit in the mix, they'll cap the losses for that, but they cap it at like 100,000.
Oh my God.
So that's insane.
I can't even compute.
Yep.
No.
I'd love to be in a situation to be able to play it. Yeah. I don't know if I could
get staked. You want to get staked for that one, Steve?
Well, I just want to have the money to be able to
I never entered the lottery, but I tried to win this $1 billion one, and that's if I won the $1 billion lottery, then I might have. Yeah. I didn't, by the way.
Just you didn't. Oh, you didn't.
Would have heard about that.
Then I go play for like an hour until Right. Well, John, anything else on the home game stuff, man? Great stuff as always. Anything else that we should know about?
No. Just keep on playing, keep having fun. If you have any suggestions, let me know.
Awesome. I love it.
Chris,
Chris,
was there one thing about the home games that you were excited about earlier that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah.
We should have announced there was an announcement.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think we teased this kind of at the beginning of the year, but I think we've got a really more formal idea now what's happening. So we are affectionately calling this Rec Madness in favor of March Madness. And we have an 8-person made up of all the core team heads up tournament that we've got all the matchups set. It's going to be bracket style. Taylor Moss is leading this effort, and it's going to be great. So my first matchup, I'm playing Chad McVean. And then John and Rob are going to be playing each other, and then we'll match up the winner of me and Chad and John and Rob will match up in the semifinals. And in the other bracket, we have Taylor matching up against Jim, and then Andrew matching up against Steve.
It's going to be so fun.
Yeah, it's going to be so great.
And
so
then
that'll be coming
talk a little bit about.
And we're going to record all the tables. We're going to have live commentary. We're going to talk them through. So the whole community can kind of get behind this, watch what's going on. We can talk through, decisions that are getting made. We can get a little focus on heads up play as well, which is a very different game, but it's really, really important. So it's going to be great. So, and when is this? So we're going to be doing this throughout March, the Thursdays in March, there'll be matches being played. So
I think we're gonna play the matches, and then the commentary will come in after. Is that correct, or is it gonna be live? Or because I don't think there's gonna be a chance for people to watch it live, right? Yeah,
I'm not sure in terms of that format when that's going to happen, whether the commentary is going to be live or not. But yeah, it'll be all during our normal Twitch broadcast segments.
We should do. Are we filling our brackets? Drayback's like, let's fill in a bracket. I think we're getting a bracket made. Is this? I don't want to say something that's not true. But we should. Taylor can do a bracket. He's got nothing else going on in his life. He's got just little kids.
Well,
he's fine.
I think he might have a connection that is going to make a professionally made, really cool looking bracket.
What we should do is they give you like $1 million if you fill out the perfect March Madness bracket.
Yeah.
I don't think we can do that, and with only 8 players, it's not as
it's certainly not as
statistically
hard.
impossible. But maybe we could have a drawing for something like a bronze pin, and everyone who gets a perfect bracket goes into the drawing, and now the pins are not mine to give away, so I'm giving away Steve's money here. So
I want to give away a hat, but Jim's too cheap.
That's correct.
It'd be fun. I think the bracket will be super fun, and I think Taylor has a connection to the person that did our logo, so there's maybe something there. I think the bracket.
That's what I heard. The rumor is that might be happening. We might have a really cool looking one.
And I think in a sense, it's sort of a test run too. We're going to try it, see how it goes, and doing these heads up things, because I know like we're seeing in the chat here, when's it my turn? I want to play. It's sort of a test run to see how this goes. And then maybe we start to, maybe do another little bit bigger bracket and just kind of see the logistics of all of this, because there's a lot of work. And John, of course, hey, John, how about we do some more tournaments? And so we'll see if we do it in John's club or different club or whatever. So we have to kind of work out a few things, because you've got to, suspend people. And I don't know, there's logistics to work out. So we're going to try that first. And no, Doug, we're not going to do anything with money at all. Even if it goes to charity, we are just we're very shying away from any money that's involved in any sort of tournament. So that sort of thing, but we just do it for fun. And I'll take Steve. Yeah, don't take Steve in this thing. That's the last thing. I'm the bracket buster. If John's going to give away $1 million, Andrew's going to be the pick in 98% of the bracket for me. And so I'm going to be the bracket buster. I'm going to be the 60.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what's happening. I think originally we were going to have people vote on seeding this thing, but then we were worried that people might feel bad. And I wouldn't have felt bad at all being the 8 seed, but
I told everyone I wanted the 5 seed, but nobody really honored my wishes.
Yeah, right.
But the idea is to build on this for next year, and to open it up to membership, and we can actually have a little more time to plan it out and see how it goes. So, but Dad, do tune in. It's going to be fun. Marek Madness.
Marek rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that'll be fun. That'll be super fun. Good luck, everybody, in your first round matchups. I think Andrew and I are going to try to play this week.
Nice.
I think so. We'll work out the details on that thing. Good. Anything else with home games then? John, what's the mixed game coming up? It's Deuce to 7 in February?
Yep. Deuce to 7 triple draw. That will be on February 10th.
All right.
That's actually, or Deuce to 7, it's No Limit Deuce to 7 single draw, sorry. And that's one of my favorite mixed games.
Okay, I'm starting to enjoy it. Yeah, it is fun. It takes a while to get used to. I've now learned that ace is high the hard way.
I think it was Doyle Brunson who said that that's the most pure game of poker.
Okay.
Because it's one where you have no shared information. I mean, the only information you get is bet sizing and the number of cards that are drawn. So you don't get to see anyone's shared cards. And because it is possible, it's more possible to get the absolute nuts. I mean, how many times do you get a royal flush if you're playing normal card draw? Hardly at all. Whereas you can get deuce to 7 nuts. That's not uncommon for that to happen once, maybe twice in a night.
Yeah.
So it really puts a lot of pressure on, because you could have just a fantastic hand, and sometimes you'll just barely get pipped. Like you have a 7-6-5 that loses to a 7-6-4.
So gross. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, super fun. Super fun. All right, guys. Well, what else we got? So you want to talk about seminars, Chris? What's coming up?
So we just kind of talked through the reads and tells one, and the next one I'm so excited for. It should be releasing fairly soon. Is all about flop texture, which I think is, it is the thing to, like, once you get past sort of the kind of getting your ranges down, your raise first in, your 3-betting, your pre-flop game. I just feel like flop texture and reading flops and playing based on what the flop is sort of giving you sort of permission to do, who has the advantage, who doesn't. I think it's really the name of this game. And so I'm really excited for it, and I think it'll be a really good conversation.
Flop texture is life.
Here's your t-shirt.
Yeah, well, good stuff. How about Rob? Anything book club? I know we're kind of on hiatus, but anything to report out of there?
Well, by the time this comes out, you should be able to listen to or watch the session 6 where we talked with Chris Wallace, and we had a very nice conversation. It lasted for over an hour. A bunch of the members were there. We got a lot of Q&A going on, so it was it was a very good conversation. I encourage everybody that has access to the premium members to go check that out.
Awesome. And now I know we kind of had a few books that were up in the air. You were doing some voting. Is there anything happening? Do we know the next book yet after Fareed, or is that still being voted on? And
no, I think what we'll do is in February we'll start a series of polls to break it down. Okay. Maybe we'll do a bracket of the books and
I love it.
Have this book against this book and go back until we get to the winner. Something like that, maybe.
Nice.
I love that. Fun. All right. Well, anybody else have anything else to report?
I just see that we actually have Stewie13 here in the chat today, and I don't think there's any coincidence that Stewie joined our Saturday morning study group for the first time last week, and now we're already talking about reporting on these winning tournaments. I think he also has like 8 seconds places, I think is what I heard over the course of the last little while. Good God. Stewie, thanks for joining us. I'm looking forward to getting you in there next week again, and congrats on the win.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, you know the drill. Go to rec.poker, check out everything there. If you're not on the TWRP newsletter, sign up for it there. We send out information every week on what's going on. It's a great way to stay plugged in. Also want to thank our sponsors, Running Aces Casino, Racetrack, and Hotel. And also, Chris Jones, thank you so much for all the work you do on the seminar. Great discussion, great stuff last month. Thanks to our panel, John, Rob, Jim, Chris, everybody. And thanks for joining the chat. And we'll catch you next time.